Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with a nebulous Charles Coulombe.
Nebulous? You mean as in I can't really be pinned down? I'm sort of all over the place?
Totally all over the place.
Not really easily visible? Okay. I have a hot calendar, though.
What?
I have a hot calendar.
What does that mean?
I mean, I have a calendar on my wall. It's really hot.
How?
Well, I'll show you. See that?
Is that hot?
Oh, it's a cow.
It's a cow?
Yeah, it's a cow calendar.
I don't see dates on that calendar.
Well, they're very small. The cow's the big. I told you it was hot. As with so many calendars, it's the picture that's the big thing.
So that was like a rebuttal to you're not nebulous because you have this hot cow calendar?
Yeah.
I don't think that makes any sense.
So maybe that's how they call me nebulous. Because I dwell in the intersection between reality and folklore, between myth, magic, and madness. I'm just sort of in the weird sidelights and kind of interstices in between reality and madness and fantasy.
Yeah.
I like that. I like nebulous. Because, see, it allows me to respond to assaults in like, give me a typical attack on a trad person. And
from a trad person? Wait,
you can do it either way. You can do it for to or from. Because you know how things are today. If we're on Twitter, it's a free-for-all. So anything you like, pro or anti-trad, doesn't matter to me. It's all the same.
You are toxic and rigid.
Wow. Does that come in fuchsia?
Does what come in fuchsia?
The past and the ocean. What really, I mean, you know, the movement, the sharing, the grandeur. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's pretty effective. That's a pretty effective, like, defense mechanism, you know?
Just get completely nebulous.
Yeah.
It's what the late lamented Brother Mary had what he called the 7 sentences.
I remember this, and I tried to ask you about it because I want to know the 7 sentences.
Oh, gosh. I wish I could remember them the way he did it. It was amazing because I saw the guy's face go from righteous fury to total blank confusion.
Tell everyone about this.
Well, basically, Brother Mary was a salesman, so to speak. That was part of his vocation. He was a religious brother, but he distributed Catholic literature from store to store to store. Well, usually people were either friendly or cold, but they were really nasty or aggressive, very rarely. But when they were, he had a technique he called the 7 sentences, which were, as he described them to me, and I saw him do it once, and it was jaw-dropping. The 7 sentences that have to be totally random with no connection to each other. So this fellow says, "Do you have a permit to be selling books?" And he brought out the Supreme Court ruling that allows people to sell books freely. And he says, "Well, I'm going to call the cops." And then brother let loose with the 7 sentences. And I watched as all that indignation, even hatred, just drained out of the guy. And he just stood there with his mouth a little open, looking at brother. And brother said, Thank you very much. Have a nice day, sir. And off we went.
It's like a Jedi mind trick or something.
It was, only it was a bit longer.
Yeah.
Because he says they have to be 7, no more, no less. They have to be totally unrelated. And to this day, I can't remember what he said because it kind of affected me too. It was like, huh? What? You couldn't follow it. It was just, I think it's wonderful they were able to build the Panama Canal back in 1903. Mother really never did like coconut. It's actually kind of amazing, all things considered, in the autumn. I wonder if the Yankees are going to win the pennant this year. They do say, though, that the best thing for croup is a little bit of cod liver oil. And really, whether or not there's life on Mars is a question we'll never really know. But there's going to be a new movie premiere Saturday night. I hope you make it.
Is that somewhere close? Is that within the realm of?
I'm trying. It's totally random. There are 7, no more, no less, and it's just complete. And as I say, I could see the anger drained out of him, the comprehension drained out. He was completely disarmed. So I realize now, putting 2 and 2 together, that was an expression of nebulosity and defense.
It's very true.
So the trick, you see, is to make nebulosity a lifestyle choice.
Wow.
So
as a writer, though, that might not be the greatest thing.
Well, no, not if you're being paid by the word. It's not. But in terms of dealing with authority figures, it is. And of course, the other thing, I'll be getting my press pass shortly. And if that'll be recognized in Europe. And when I've got that puppy, if I'm dealt with by an authority figure for not being vaccinated or something, I know what I'm going to say. Officer, I'm legally required to notify you that as a registered member of the press, everything you say from here on in and do will be part of the public record. I don't want you to take this as a threat or as any sort of intimidation. Just bear in mind that everything that you say and do is now of public record. Of course, the fact that I'm legally obligated, makes it sound.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're some brainwashed, servant of the state that will just literally destroy anyone's life out of sheer protocol.
Well, it's not really my choice.
Exactly. That's scary to people. I think that scares the hell out of people.
It does. Well, see, you could be reasoned with as a person.
Yeah.
But if you're just the walking, talking mouthpiece of some invisible authority, God knows what'll come out of that.
Yeah.
Especially because people like policemen have been the agents of nameless, mindless authority and have seen what it can do to other people in other contexts. You don't want to fall into the clutches of nameless, brainless officialdom. Oh, this is above my pay grade. I'm afraid you're really going to have to deal with my superiors.
Question for you: how much do press passes cost in the black market? Because you know what I mean? Like, everyone's under lockdown and you can't do anything except if you have the press pass. What's the price?
Mine is legitimate. I'm not paying a penny for it. But it's funny you'd be asking a question like that, isn't it now? So you're interested in bogus press passes, are you? Well, boyo, I won't say you've come to the right place, but it could be that your old friend Officer Clancy has heard a thing or two. This is something we can have a discussion about, maybe not in public. I mean, you understand, I'd have nothing to do with the manufacture and sale of bogus press passes. The very idea, boyo, is an attack on the majesty of the law. But of course, on the other hand, for a minor consideration, I might be able to see my way to putting you in touch with someone.
Beautiful.
Well, Officer Clancy is the opposite end of the mindless agent of higher authority.
That's very true.
He's very much
He's enterprising.
He's enterprising, and he's got a way of humanizing authority.
It's true.
Well, I'll tell you. If I had to kick this upstairs, up the line, I'd have no control over the issue. But as long as it's just a question of you and me now. That's a whole other story, boyo.
So you're telling me Officer Clancy is the antithesis of the way modern government operates?
Oh, yeah, very much so. Well, in a way, in a sense. See, what modern government does, modern government only permits it at their level, at the top. What Officer Clancy does is democratizes the whole system by bringing it down to all of us so we can all share.
That's beautiful.
Isn't it? Isn't it lovely? Again, it goes back to the neighborhood. Bear with the people. That's what it is, you see. As I say, if we were to follow the usual protocol, this whole thing would be kicked upstairs, and God knows what would come of it all. Now, wouldn't it be saving everyone, the taxpayer included, a ton of trouble if we just settled it here? It's what you might call subsidiarity in action. We'll settle the whole issue right here, right now, and nothing more will be said about it. What do you say, boyo?
Love Officer Clancy.
Yeah, me too. All us kids did, He was always so helpful. Even riding the bus, into town. Now, come here, lad. What are you doing talking to that tart over there for? Well, I don't know, officer. I mean, they're all here every Friday night. Every Friday night, you say? Yes, officer. They might require an escort, It gets awfully dangerous, this part of town.
Wow.
And you see the smiling bus driver.
Yeah.
A slice of Americana. I don't want to say that everybody was on the take back in the old neighborhood. Now, let me ask you a question, Mr. Bus Driver, sir. Did you notice anything about your regular run of female passengers on the Friday night run into town? Why, no, officer, I didn't. What an intelligent man you are. Me neither. What about you, kid? You're a Boy Scout. That's right, officer. Well, did you see anything suspicious among them harlots back there? Oh, no. Well, all right. The whole thing has my seal of approval. Move along. That's how he kept his subsidiarity, keeping everything on a neighborhood level.
There we go.
Not bothering the higher-ups, as he would say. Well, they're very, very busy men up there in their towers, in the city hall and down at the precinct. We wouldn't want to get them upset or worried or out of their usual method of doing things, So we'll keep this sort of in the house. The neighborhood takes care of its own. I don't know how it's possible, but Officer Clancy's beat has the lowest crime rate in this part of the city. There never any crimes reported at all. Well, on receiving for the 10th straight year the policeman's award for lowest crime in his beat. Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow officers, it comes down to cooperating with your people. That's what it is, you see. Locally rooted policing. That's the trick.
All right.
Clancy, Clancy, this is all very kind of dodgy. Oh, you think so, Sergeant? Well, why don't you ask that Boy Scout over there? He'll tell you. Oh, Sergeant, it's exactly the way Officer Clancy said. You're not going to take the word of a Boy Scout. Oh, I like that. I can make you one promise. If you all came to work in this precinct, crime would go up by 500% the first day. I promise you. And the one time they did try to replace him, that's exactly what happened. It was amazing. There was all sorts of crime.
All right.
So when they
Enough.
brought,
Let's move along.
well, I'll just say that when they brought him back after his enforced vacation, once again the crime rate went way down. But his replacement officers, oh, life was hard for them.
I'm sure. He's got a magic touch.
Oh, he sure does. It's called a Billy Club. None of that, you. Bam. No, I don't want to have to tell you twice. Oh, no, officer. Once was enough.
So what is new, Charles? What's on the calendar?
What is new? Well, there's a lot on the calendar. For starters, we are doing this show in real time on the 29th, which in the traditional calendar was the Feast of St. Francis de Sales. Yesterday was my name day, the Feast of Blessed Charlemagne. But you know who also observes it as his name day?
Who?
The King of Sweden, Carl XVI Gustaf. So yesterday, all over Sweden, they had the flags out in honor of the King's name day. But wait, there's more. Tomorrow is Sunday the 30th, which is an amazing day. That's the day before everyone will be seeing this. But
what's on that day?
Well, I'll tell you. Funny you should ask. Saint Fotina, I think. It was the day that Charles I, King of England, Scotland, Ireland, and the American colonies, was murdered by Oliver Cromwell. And it is the feast of one of my personal favorite blesseds, Blessed Dom Columba Marmion, author of Christ and His Mysteries and such classics. It is the feast of Venerable Dom Prosper Guéranger. It is the death day of the never sufficiently persecuted Father Leonard Feeney. It is the penultimate day of January. The next day is January the 31st, when they'll be seeing this. And that is the death day of Bonnie Prince Charlie. So say a prayer for the repose of his soul. Lord knows he needs it. But on Tuesday, you've got my mind just blanked. Tuesday, February the 1st, you've got St. Bridget's Day. And that night is Candlemas Eve, when you've got to take down all the remaining Christmas decorations.
Oh.
Yeah, the end of Christmas. And then Candlemas Day. And the Candle Mass is a wonderful, wonderful feast. Now, I realize we're not supposed to go to anything traditional, according to trash can custodians and other such documents. What?
Yeah, custodians of the trash can. Yep.
Is that what it's called? Because they want to throw tradition in the trash can.
That's actually very true.
Yeah, it is. So while their little niblets are doing whatever little niblets do when they're elderly and senile and stupid, in the real world, it's Candlemas. And if you can make it, either a decent Novus Ordo or a Tridentine Mass. Yeah, I said it, Tridentine. Sorry, that was for the morons in the audience, if there are any. If you could see the blessing of the candles, it's a sublime rite. But if you can't, it is a double-edged feast. It is at once the purification of the Virgin Mary for her time after childbirth, and the presentation of our Lord in the temple, which two actions happen at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Because she was purified and he was presented as part of the same thing.
Mm.
And that was when they encountered Simeon and Anna.
Mm.
And I mean, it's really, Simeon warns Our Lady that a sword shall pierce her heart. And that's when he says, now, O Lord, let thy servant depart in peace. I mean, it's a truly mystical and wonderful thing all in itself. I love the feast, but it's always kind of saddening because I don't like the end of Christmas, frankly.
Yeah.
But having said that, there's a lot to look forward to. Septuagesima is coming up. That means Mardi Gras season. Valentine's Day, St. Valentine's Day. And of course, for those of us who have been going shopping, you know that the day after New Year's, the red Valentine's hearts were everywhere. You saw those?
Yeah.
Do you realize this will be your first Valentine's Day as a married man?
Feels good.
Yeah, well, it should. Now, what it means, though, is you're going to have to find a place that's really romantic. I was going to recommend the Hat or Wonder Burger. Or Wonder
Honestly,
Burger.
we don't even go out on Valentine's Day. We like go the day before, the day after, because Valentine's Day, it's so crazy that it's not even enjoyable. Because
Well, you know why?
everyone's going out to eat. What?
Well, yes, but there's more to it than that. It's just like how New Year's Eve and St. Patrick's Day are for the once-a-year drunks.
Ah.
So the time, the once-a-year lovers.
That's kind of sad if that's the case. I've never even thought of that. I mean, that's. Do you think
Well, you
that's
got to
really?
wait till St. Valentine's Day. No,
All
I
right.
don't. I said it to be annoying and obnoxious, but I think it's not entirely untrue, though.
Yeah, not entirely untrue. But yeah.
No, I mean, really, ladies and gentlemen, when you're thinking of your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend, a particular spouse, uh, every day can't be Valentine's Day, perhaps, but anytime you're thinking of St. Valentine's Day, think about the possibility of taking him out for something, even if it's just a walk. Don't let the moment go by.
Yes.
One of the great things my brother and sister-in-law have always done through their whole marriage, they got married in 1980s, so they've been doing it for a short time. One night a week they have date night. They go out, and there are certain things that are forbidden topics on date night. Money, household management of any kind, the chillins. They can talk about religion, politics, literature. They can reminisce. Anything like that's fine. What they can't talk about is money, household, or chillins. It's
Wow.
just the two of them.
That's interesting.
Yep.
I'm surprised about money. I don't know. At least for me, money doesn't come up a lot. It's not really a hot point. But But your brother's a money man, so makes
He's a
sense.
money man, and of course the thing is too that when you've got, especially when you've got children, and you're juggling accounts and finances and all this kind of stuff, there's always a temptation to ruin the mood by talking about money.
Right. Yeah. Well, also too. I mean, your brother has so many kids, so that's obviously
Could be because of date night.
could be because of date night. Wow, that's interesting.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying. I don't
Okay.
know.
Okay.
I'm not privy to certain things. All I can tell you is that they didn't hop out of nowhere.
All right.
So, anyhow, there are two other important things coming up in February: Ash Wednesday and Lent, of course. So, sadly, probably after Candlemas, you should begin to think about what you're going to do for Lent.
When's Ash Wednesday?
Oh, golly, this year I do not know, but I will. I will tell you.
March
You
2nd.
will know.
I got it, Charles. It's chill.
Oh, is it? 2nd March.
Oh, never mind. Okay, yeah, you're right.
So, 2nd March, you are absolutely, positively free
free of wait, what? I didn't follow
until
that thought.
2nd of March.
Oh,
You've got all of February free of Lent.
oh, okay.
So we've got a long Septuagesima this year.
No.
So enjoy February. And that reminds me of the 2 other big holidays that are civil holidays in February.
What, President's Day?
Well, kind of. It's not really called President's Day legally.
Oh, okay. Law Day? Constitution Day?
Lincoln's birthday on February 12th and Washington's birthday on February 22nd, or the nearest Mondays to those 2. So you could think about George Washington and Abraham Lincoln.
Nice.
Where was George Washington's biggest home?
I thought it was Mount Vernon or something.
You thought correctly.
Oh.
And what about Lincoln?
I thought he lived in Illinois.
He did.
But I'm obviously I don't know where. I mean, what, a log cabin?
He had several different homes,
Oh,
and
okay.
a number of his homes are kept as museums.
Hmm.
Now, when you say President's Day, though, which is the name it's come to have, Washington's birthday legally still. It allows us to think about that great institution, the presidency of the United States. Dun, 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 dun,
That you're gonna seamlessly have that go into March of the Gladiators.
Would I do that?
Yes.
Well, I would. And I have to admit, ladies and gentlemen, that just as I have long thought that Star Spangled Banner should be replaced as our national anthem with another song called The Year of Jubilo, I do believe that Hail to the Chief as our presidential anthem should be replaced with March of the Gladiators. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with March of the Gladiators, remember Hail to the Chief goes, you've got ruffles and flourishes beforehand. Bump a bum bum ba, bump a bum bum ba, bump a bum bum ba. Bum bum ba da 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 dee 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 da dee 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 da da dee 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 dee. Well, you get the idea.
Yeah.
Well, under my system, that would be replaced with bum ba bum bum ba, bum ba bum bum ba, bum ba bum bum ba. What?
Yes. Classic circus music.
Well, for a classic circus. And that's not all. But wait, there's more. Think, if you will, of the majesty of the presidency of the United States. The president lives in the White House, which, like the Capitol, is the incarnation of our history as a free republic. The National Cathedral in Washington, where in recent years so many of our presidential funerals have taken place. St. John's Church, Lafayette Square, the Church of the Presidents, where every president since Washington, has attended service. Camp David, Maryland, the Versailles of the presidency, where the president goes to relax, taking a few hard-earned hours off from the busy efforts of state. The Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest civilian award our country can produce. And remember that scattered all around our great nation are presidential homes and libraries where the memory of each of these great statesmen is kept whole and entire. Sometimes there are several homes, several monuments, etc. Plus, their graves, the graves of each of our presidents, are honored on the anniversaries of their deaths by wreaths sent by the current holder of the office. Remember that our president is the one who lights the national Christmas tree, presides over the Easter egg roll. He's the one who, by proclamation, declares various holidays from Thanksgiving to Constitution Day, Law Day, Loyalty Day, Flag Day, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, the 4th of July, Independence Day. All of these, he is, in a sense, by giving us days, Thanksgiving Day, by giving us days of national prayer, thanksgiving, and rejoicing, by leading us in the national cultus, if you will. He serves as a sort of high priest of the American faith. And most presidents in recent years have gone to the annual Red Mass at St. Matthew's Cathedral, assisting at the invocation of the Holy Ghost upon the deliberations of our Supreme Court and our government.
Yes. All right.
What do you mean, yes? The President of the United States is our commander-in-chief of our armed forces that serve all across the globe, standing tall and ready for freedom. He also receives in the East Room of the White House the ambassadors of foreign nations who present him with their letters of credence to show that the diplomatic side of the office is so important. And don't forget, he is the main sponsor of the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities, the President's Campaign for Physical Fitness. There's a lot the President of these United States do. We repose the entire interest of our people and our great republic in his hands. And we surround the office with the amount of pomp necessary to convey its dignity and its majesty to the world at large, as well as to our own citizens.
Yes. Okay. I mean, I was waiting for that long-winded list of responsibilities and duties to go somewhere and to maybe throw in a joke at the end, but
a joke? A joke at the expense of the Chief Executive of the United States of America, honorary Chief Executive of the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, patron of the future farmers of America? Is that who you're suggesting I make fun of?
I'm not suggesting that.
The chief of state and chief of government of this great land of ours.
Okay, yeah.
Into his hands also goes conservation of our nation's precious natural resources, because it falls to the president to designate areas as national historic sites, national wildlife refuges, national parks, national forests, the public lands. All these lay under his aegis. And in times of supreme emergency, such as the Great Depression of the 1930s, sometimes a president has to go even further. If you think about it, look across this great land of ours and look at the many, many things that were built by the New Deal. The not the Federal Writers Project, but the Works Progress Administration, the Public Works Administration, the Civilian Conservation Corps. All of these things, all of these wonderful, wonderful things brought to us by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Okay.
The presidency of the United States is so sublime, it's almost impossible to discuss it in less than overwhelming terms.
Agreed. Okay.
And more than that, the president is also the head of his political party, be it Republican, Democratic, American Independent, Prohibition, or any of the other parties that might somehow one day slime their way into office.
Wait, what did you say?
What?
What did you say? What?
I said one of the other parties that might slime their way into office. What? What?
Slime their way?
Well, yeah, why shouldn't they slime their way? All right. Look, do you remember the election last November?
No.
Well, neither does President Biden. And that's an important thing. We at last have a president whose mental capacity is up to the job. See, every other president we've ever had has been deeply concerned about the conduct of his office. Now we're blessed to have one who doesn't worry because he can't remember.
Charles, are you trying to break me? Are you
What?
just gonna filibuster this topic with just listing everything imaginable until I just erupt in rage?
Filibuster? Now you bring up the Congress of the United States. Fine. We'll leave the executive behind. We'll leave the president with his cabinet and his war-making ability, and we'll go down. All right, fine. We'll go there. We'll go down the mall.
Yeah, we're
past the Smithsonian
definitely
Institution.
exploring a lot of pork right now.
From ear to rind, we're going to go whole hog on this one.
We're just...
All the way down the mall to the Capitol building, that sacred temple of democracy, wherein reside not one but two houses of Congress, the House of Representatives, the People's House, wherein 20,000 of us elect delegates to represent us and our needs and our views, and the Senate, 100 interesting individuals who are dedicated to representing their states.
that little pause there, that brief moment to consider your word choices was key.
Well, I had to think about this, and amongst them, they have a page program which allows young men and women to come from the far reaches of our great country and find out how Kamala Harris was able to become an important person.
Okay, Charles, I'm so inspired by your list of duties of the President of the United States that I feel inspired to take advantage of my abilities as president and CEO of Tumblr House.
Oh?
And I'm going to cut this short. I'm going to use my executive veto power to say we are going to move on to the memes of production.
In Congress, that's called the guillotining.
I'm going to guillotine this.
All right, well, you may, but I would just like to point out, number one, we didn't even touch on the Supreme Court, which is the third branch of our government.
In the words of Cardinal Dolan, let's not.
Well, he's our fourth branch of government all by himself. There's legislative, executive, judiciary, and Cardinal Dolan. He's the fourth branch of government, Cardinal Dolan. Yep. He does at the national level what Officer Clancy does for us at home.
Okay.
Dear old Cardinal Dolan. So a friend of mine suggested to me today, what are we going to do if Cardinal Dolan's elected Pope? I think that would be a tremendous improvement because he's somebody you can deal with,
I think it would be, yeah, well, okay.
It would certainly be interesting.
It would be interesting. That's true. I wouldn't be able to predict how that goes.
Well, no, because it would be totally situational.
Yeah.
It would be which way is the wind blowing now? It'd be great. I mean, which way is the Holy Ghost blowing? Woo! I think he's blowing north by northwest.
All right.
I think a Dolan papacy would be a tremendous improvement, but totally unpredictable, of course.
All right, let's move into the memes of production.
Nationalize the means of production.
For the common good. All right.
What do we got? Are you
So
going to share the screen, or will I be left in darkness?
You're left in darkness.
Can I have a donut?
No donuts in. No.
Can I whine about it?
Yes.
I wanted a donut.
All right.
I have coffee.
Mason says, if, as is noted around the 10-minute mark, referring to the previous episode, COVID restrictions are being removed at most places, but being tightened in Los Angeles and Austria, we can assume that it is done out of systemic discrimination against Tumblr House family business.
I think that's absolutely true, and I think Cardinal Dolan should plead our case before the World Court. He should go to The Hague. I can see it now. Cardinal Dolan at the Peace Palace. Well, now these lads, they're nothing against the go ahead, cut them some slack. What do you think about it? He doesn't actually have a brogue like that, but it would be interesting if he did.
Yeah. But yeah, and the Mason is caught on, I mean, Tumblr House, we're in the big water now,
Yeah. We're treading big water. Like everyone else. Actually, though, it is funny who's getting rid of it and who's keeping it. Denmark and Norway just dumped it.
Well, honestly, I think everybody. I just went to Home Depot yesterday, and like half the people had the masks underneath their nose. I think everyone is suffering from mask fatigue. I think everyone's over the masks. Even in California here,
protecting their chins, basically.
Yeah. So I think
no COVID will ever infect my chin, not with this mask.
So I think we're on the last legs of the restrictions.
It's the downside, and we've never discussed this. I just throw it out there though.
Yeah.
The downside of all of this is that if we ever do get a real problem like the plague, nobody's going to listen to them.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
The ruling class that cried wolf.
It's very true. All right. But let's keep it light. This is the memes of production.
That's true. Let's nationalize them all. I don't care.
So, well, actually, this is going to be hard to keep light. As Connor says, I have to say I made a terrible mistake in watching Oswald's Holiday Groovathon. Listening to his rendition of Silent Night to the much butchered tune of Staying Alive was too much. But boy, that polyester suit fits him like a glove.
Yeah, it fit him like a glove when we were young. And there's, just as with me, I'll be honest, just as with me, there's a lot more than there was then. It's almost 50 years since the 70s, and Oswald hasn't changed his clothing style. He still stuffs himself up into those stupid polyester leisure suit thingy instead of a jumpsuit.
Have you changed your style?
No. I dress exactly the way I did then. But see, the difference is that we had similar physiques, to be honest with you. And in those days, if I had wanted to squeeze into something tight-fitting like that, it wouldn't have been too displeasing a sight, so I'm told. But time takes away and time adds. I mean, think of old Elvis stuffed into his suit. He came to look like a pear. Well, those polyester leisure suits, jumpsuit thingies, they were not meant for fat people. They just weren't. If you've got a pleasing appearance, fitting like a glove is fine. If you're a pound of lard, it's not so pretty. Now, if you're
ad hominem towards.
It's
Oswald.
not an ad hominem. I'm saying I'm as much of a tub as he is. I'm not denying that.
Oh, then it's okay to be uncharitable.
Yeah, exactly. When you include yourself in the deal, yes, it is okay. And the thing is, a three-piece suit is a three-piece suit. You look the way you look. He is trying to stay young. It's not going to work. It never worked before. And a Groovathon really, I hate to tell you this, but I'm not naming names, but somebody in the camera crew, not saying who, gave me some, shall we say, previews of your Groovathon special for him. I felt betrayed, by the way, that the whole thing was done at the Tower. We're supposed to have an exclusive contract, and the minute my head is turned, or I'm out of the country anyway, you let Bozo do his Groovathon thing in my studio. I like that. I wasn't going to say anything, but if even outsiders notice, anyhow, it was a very substandard production because they weren't working for me; they were working for him, and they didn't do their best work. That's true. And he was his usual no talent self, singing terrible songs that nobody wants to hear to tunes of his own ruining. And the fact that you allowed the facilities, the tower, to be used in this fashion, I mean, I didn't want to say anything because it was Christmas and all, but now that we're almost at the end of the season, I felt very badly hurt.
You need to let go of the hatred in your heart. It's going to give you an ulcer.
The man's a no-talent bum.
Give peace a chance.
I did that. I did that. He ended up stealing a studio from me. So thanks. Thanks a lot. A piece of what?
A piece of what? Well done.
No, I think you always. I understand, and your brother used to pull this crap on me too. There's always the you keep the whip hand because there's always Oswald in reserve. One day you're going to realize that if you ever stuck with him as your mainliner instead of me, you'd be all over. That guy empties a room faster than an earthquake. I mean, have you ever caught his act? Have you ever caught his act in a nightclub? Probably not, because there are very few in your area that are stupid enough to hire him. But if you ever did, I mean, comparisons are invidious. But Oswald was never a tenth the performer I was. And that's
right.
not me saying it. And as far as Groovathons go, let me tell you, did you know that he had intended originally to turn it into a charging thing? He was going to raise money with the Groovathon? He didn't tell you that, did he?
What? Oh, bad Oswald. He's trying to earn a living.
Earn a living by eye. It was supposed to be for charity. The charity was the Oswald Dupree Retirement Fund. And I'll tell you, if he would retire, I'd contribute.
So people who work for charities can't earn a living? They have to just be beggars on the street? They have to...
No, but some of the money should go to the charity. That's the thing. I mean, if you're going to have a telethon kind of a deal, some of the money that people donate should go to the cause. And see, at the end of the day, that's why they didn't do that, because Oswald's known in the area. None of the charities would sponsor him, so he ended up just doing it as a for-profit deal.
All right.
But originally it was going to be for charity, and he's calling around. Hi, this is Oswald Dupree. Is this Easter Seals? Click. Hi, this is Oswald Dupree. Is this the Tuberculosis Fund? Click. March of Dimes turned him down. March of Dimes. Planned Parenthood turned him down.
All right, enough of these shenanigans, Charles. We're approaching the 50-minute mark, according to my watch.
Oh, heavens. So you want to get to work, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, it's time to get serious, time to do the questions, all right? All right, are you ready to get serious?
I don't know. Well, maybe.
Let's
Can I have
go.
a donut?
No. All right, here we go. First question. The Balrog, first question from the Balrog from the Ramapo Mountains, who says,
all right, let's get serious. Let's get serious. Let's buckle down now.
All right. The Balrog says, sorry, I'm a bit nervous. Longtime fan, first-time questioner. First, I would like to
Oh,
take
bad.
some time to thank both Minnie and Charles. You both have been integral in my conversion from Morgothianism, and for this I shall always be grateful. Not only that, but I'm actually discerning the Jesuits, so wish me luck. With that out of the way, I have something in the way of a historical what if for Charles. What if
Okay.
the US had allied with Germany to defeat the Soviets in World War II instead of vice versa? Where would we be today? Would we be in a better place, a worse place? It seems to me that we would almost certainly be better off, but most people aren't ready for that conversation. I know it's kind of a spicy question, but I'm a creature of shadow and flame who dwells in the bowels of the earth, after all. What do you
Well, there's
think?
that. There's that. Well,
Wow.
only a creature of shadow and flame who dwells in the bowels of the earth would come up with that sort of a question. But I'm willing to entertain it. The basic question is, would it be okay to ally with Beelzebub rather than Satan?
Yeah, Stalin and Hitler. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, in the end, we did ally with Satan.
hmm.
So the question is, would it have been better if we'd allied with Beelzebub? That would depend on whether or not we had insisted on regime change. Now, one of the things that I have always held against the Allies in World War II was their insistence on unconditional surrender.
Right.
The truth is that had we been willing to say to the Germans and the Japs, get rid of Hitler, get rid of Tojo, and we'll talk, they would have gotten rid of them. Especially in the case of Germany, with the Soviets breathing down their necks.
Hmm.
I mean, once 1942 came along and it was kind of obvious that Nazi stupidity on the Eastern Front was going to lose them the war eventually. If at that time we had said, "Get rid of Uncle Adi, and we'll talk," that would have been it.
Hmm.
Um, Now then, of course, we would have been put into a very interesting situation because had the Germans then turned around and said, "Well, look, we'll surrender to you, but we can't surrender to the Soviets," that would have put Roosevelt and Churchill in a peculiar situation. Um, and of
Hmm.
course, it was Roosevelt who insisted on unconditional surrender in the first place. So you would have had the only way it would have happened is if you'd had somebody else as president of the United States. But had he said, "Okay," and had we then given the Soviets the ultimatum of, "All right, war's over, you got to withdraw now," then it
Hmm.
would have depended on whether Stalin was willing to do that. If he had refused, then yes, we would have found ourselves fighting alongside the post-Hitler Germans against the Soviets.
Hmm.
In a situation of that sort, especially with an ending of the Nazi hold on Germany, there is the possibility that we might have been able to defeat the Soviets as easily as the Germans would have if they had not had the Nazis at the helm.
Hmm. Um. Speaking of killing like these evil leaders to prevent further bloodshed and evil governments, were there ever any attempts on Stalin's life?
Oh yeah,
Huh.
but Stalin, like Hitler, Stalin, he was protected by the devil.
Hmm.
It's the only thing I can think of. And he was much more suspicious of everybody than Hitler was, and he was very proactive when it came to killing off people that he considered possible threats.
Yeah, we talked about this. I forgot what we were talking about, but I was quoting Michael Corleone in Godfather 2, where he says, "If history has taught us anything, it's that you can kill anybody." And I remember we got some interesting comments who had mentioned, I forgot, it was some sort of militaristic leader in Eastern Europe who Stalin had tried to kill and kept failing at it. And eventually, and he told Stalin, he's like, please stop trying to kill me, because if you keep trying to kill me, I'm going to actually retaliate. Do you know who I'm talking about during the time? I forgot.
Pilsudski of Poland.
I don't think it's a Poland. Oh, Tito. It's Yugoslav dictator
Oh,
Tito. There we
oh
go.
yeah, after the war, yeah. Tito was a real piece of work, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that name because I was like, that sounds Spanish, but it's Yugoslavian. So,
He was a Croat, but
yeah. So Stalin tried to kill Tito, but just couldn't do it. And Tito was
yeah.
like, "Can you please stop, or I'm going to kill you."
And he might have done it.
Hmm.
He might have done it.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just interesting. I don't know. Yeah, protection from the devil, basically, or
Yeah,
protected by the devil. Excuse me.
by the devil. I suppose Tito had the same.
Yeah.
Tito
So
was a real horrible individual. I mean, the communists were just such thugs. And as I say, the one thing that should always prevent us from claiming moral superiority over the Nazis is that we were willing to ally with the Soviets.
yeah.
And contrariwise, if anybody thinks that the Nazis were better than the Soviets, they're wrong.
Hmm.
Hitler's body count was much lower than Stalin's, and both of them lower than Mao's, because of lack of opportunity, as much as anything else. Remember that Stalin was dictator of the Soviet Union from 22 to 53. He had a good 31 years. Hitler only had 12.
Yeah.
And
So
Mao was in a position to murder people from the 20s until he died in 1971 or 2, whenever it was, 73, whenever Mao died. He 76, was it? Anyway, so he'd had decade after decade after decade to just murder people right and left, and he took advantage of it.
yeah.
Uh,
Okay. All right. A question from William, who says, "Why isn't Margery Kempe a saint? They Anglicans have regarded her as one, but why not the Catholic Church? Has there ever been an attempt to do this in the Roman Church? What are your thoughts on this devout woman from the Middle Ages?"
well, there hasn't been as much because her book was not rediscovered until the 1930s as any other reason. It immediately became popular amongst Anglicans. With Catholics, it's been a lot more, shall we say, reserved. There was never a cultus for her before the discovery of her book, you see. And I don't know how valid these claims are, because to be honest with you, I haven't read the book, so I'm talking out of my hat. But I have seen a couple of people claiming that it was self-advertising to try to get herself made a saint. Well, I don't know if that's true. But the fact that there had not been a pre-existing cultus, that she was virtually forgotten until the 1930s when her book was rediscovered, I think is what mitigated against her being having her cause introduced in the Catholic Church. Now, that may change over time, because if more and more people read the book and they get a lot out of it, and they pray for her intercession, and things start happening, then a cultus will grow up. But you see, the Anglicans, they have never actually canonized anybody except King Charles I. All the other holy men and women whose anniversaries they observe, they're just remembrance dates. They're not. They don't try to canonize them. And these include people I really like Ralph Adams Cram and so on, who has a feast day in the calendar of the Episcopal Church. So that's why.
Hmm. That's fascinating to me, how someone from the was it 14th century
Can speak.
no, I mean, like, like write a book and then have it disappear for half a millennium, you know,
and then
and
reappear and become popular.
yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. Just looking at her, so she was a pilgrim. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
All right.
Question from Vonday Radio, who says, "Can you comment on the meaning and significance of the king asleep in the mountain motif? Why does it recur in so many cultures? What's the king asleep in the mountain motif?"
Well, the king asleep in the mountain motif is the idea of a hero king like Arthur or Charlemagne or Barbarossa or Sebastian of Portugal. I mean, they have a ton of these characters who are supposed to be asleep in the mountain or someplace else, but usually a mountain, and will revive and save their people when they're most needed. And most European peoples have one or more of these characters in their folklore. I think there are several elements to it. One is that kingship, Christian kingship, is a participation in the kingship of Christ. And we all know that underlying our religion is the idea of the return of Christ at the end of time. So this messianic return was applied in a lesser way to various rulers and other people who became folk heroes to their people. And the idea that, like King Arthur or Charlemagne, one day they would return, having done so many great things while alive. One day when we need him most, he'll come back. There's also a connection to the idea of the last emperor. The last emperor of Rome will arise just before the end, and who will restore the church, restore the empire, and then fall in battle with the Antichrist. You know, all of these aspirations, shall we say, because they're ultimately aspirations toward restoration. You know, we human beings have a lot of standard emotions. One of them that's very strong is nostalgia, and the feeling that the past was better than the present, which often is the case, in fact, especially in periods of confusion and horror the way we have today. So this yearning for good King Charles's golden days, for the king comes to his own again, often gets applied backward in time to these, as they used to say, culture heroes. I'll give you two quotes which I think epitomize what I'm trying to get at. One, and I may have read this before, I don't remember, but it's worth reading again, is from Orson Welles. Now, Orson Welles did a tremendous movie called Chimes at Midnight, which basically what he did was he took the character of Sir John Falstaff, who appears in Shakespeare's plays, the two Henry IVs, a little bit in Henry V, and a lot in Merry Wives of Windsor. And Sir John is this roistering, drunken, wenching, fat, cowardly knight who takes Prince Hal, the heir to the throne, under his wing. And Prince Hal, he feels very, very separated from his father, the king, Henry IV. He's looking for a father figure, and Sir John basically takes over that role. But Sir John is the opposite of his father, where his father is cold and calculating. Sir John is full of life and funny and great to be around. But then Henry becomes king. His father dies. He becomes Henry V, the hero of Agincourt, and he cuts Sir John off. Sir John is sure that once Prince Hal becomes the king, he'll have a voice in affairs and all that. But when Hal becomes king, he'll have nothing to do with him because, let's face it, Sir John is a roisterer and a wild man. All right. Well, Orson Welles took the different Falstaff sequences of the different Shakespeare plays and put them together in a really good film, his favorite of his own and my favorite of his work, called Chimes at Midnight. And back in '85, just before he died, Welles was interviewed about Falstaff. And you'll see there's a point here I have to make about the King out of the Mountain. All right. He says, this is Orson Welles speaking about Sir John Falstaff. Falstaff, I think, is the most unusual figure in fiction. It is almost entirely a good man. Now, most people, by the way, I'll say parenthetically, wouldn't think that of him. He's a wild man, but this is Welles. He's a gloriously life-affirming good man. And there are very few gigantic silhouettes on the horizon of fiction who are also good. They're always flawed. They're always interesting because of what is wrong with them. Falstaff is, I think, really Merry England. I think Shakespeare was greatly preoccupied, as I am in my humble way, with the loss of innocence. And I think there has always been in England an older England, which was sweeter, purer, where the hay smelled better and the weather was always springtime and the daffodils blew in the gentle warm breezes. You feel a nostalgia for it in Chaucer, and you feel it all through Shakespeare. And I think that he was profoundly against the modern age, as I am. I am against my modern age, he was against his. And I think his villains are modern people. They represent the modern world, which includes gouging out eyes and sons being ungrateful to their fathers and all the rest of it. I think he was a typically English writer, archetypically, the perfect English writer in that very thing, that preoccupation with that Camelot, which is the great English legend, And innocent is what Falstaff is. He's a kind of refugee from that world. And he has to live by his wits. He has to be funny. He hasn't a place to sleep if he doesn't get a laugh out of his patron. So it's a rough modern world that he's living in. But I think you have to see it in his eyes. That's why I was so very glad to be doing it in black and white, because if it's in color, he must have blue eyes. You've got to see that look that comes out of the age that never existed, but exists in the heart of all English poetry. Now, what he says there about Camelot being the ultimate English legend is true. And King Arthur was the first of these kings under the mountain, the once and future king, who will set all things to right. If Sir John is a refugee from that purer world, the kings under the mountain, in their various guises in their various countries, will bring that back. Arthur will restore Camelot. Charlemagne will bring back Aix-la-Chapelle, and so on through the whole bunch of them. The other quote is a royalist song for the Wars of the Three Kingdoms, which became a Jacobite song, but it's called When the King Enjoys His Own Again. I won't sing it because the tune is too hard for me, frankly. But the words really will tell you. I mean, it speaks very much to the whole idea. Let rogues and cheats prognosticate concerning kings a kingdom's fate. I think myself to be as wise as he that gazeth on the skies. My sight goes beyond the depth of a pond or rivers in the greatest rain, whereby I can tell that all will be well when the king enjoys his own again. And he goes on, though for a time we see Whitehall with cobwebs hanging on the wall, instead of gold and silver brave, which formerly was wont to have, with rich perfume in every room, delightful to that princely train. Yet the old again shall be when the time you see that the king enjoys his own again. Then fears avaunt upon the hill, my hope shall cast her anchor still, until I see some peaceful dove bring home the branch I daily love. Then will I wait till the waters abate, which now disturb my troubled brain. Then forever rejoice when I've heard the voice that the king enjoys his own again. So he did, of course, not Charles I, sadly, but Charles II. Mind you, the Restoration was not quite the paradise that the song would imply was going to happen. But it's the same thing. Ultimately, the king under the mountain represents the return of the grand old times that may not have existed and may be our yearning for heaven itself, a yearning for the second coming. As I've said, though, there are a lot of these figures in European folklore. And I actually had the idea for a novel on it. The idea being you've got some little English village where supposedly the old legend that the lord of the manor went off on the Crusades. He was killed, they brought him back, they buried him. But one day, when the town needs him most, he'll rise again. Well, he does rise again. And this, but I mean, in a modern setting, and so it's very confusing. He and his men take over the town, much to the annoyance of the authorities and so on. But then it develops that it's not just in the town. All over England, these sorts of local figures have been rising. And then finally at Cadbury Castle, Arthur rises. But it turns out it's not just Britain. All over Europe, the kings under the mountain are emerging. and of course, as you can imagine, the various government, media, bureaucrats, and academics are all very upset, waving their little hands, pursing their little lips, and basically whinnying as much as they can at these terrible, terrible beings. They're awful. We don't need their kind. We have everything. It's perfect. We're wonderful. Well, maybe not. Anyhow, I don't know that I'll ever write it, but that's the idea.
Like the idea.
Yeah. Well, if you know of a publishing house that's really that interesting. Oh.
I don't know if we can afford you, Charles.
Look, all you have to do is publish every book idea I've ever had in my head. I'll write it. You give me all the money, and we can split the profits.
All right.
I don't know if I'd settle for a deal like that if I were you, but never mind.
All right. Question from James, who says there is currently a fierce debate among the trad intellectual circles about whether Ultramontanism or modernism is more of the root cause of the current crisis in the church. What is your stance on this question? It would seem to me that Ultramontanism was originally devised as a means of combating modernism, but the Ultramontanist structures were corrupted by modernism and have since been utilized to bring great harm to the church.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, the Ultramontanism arose in response to the previous problems that the church had faced with Gallicanism and Jansenism and Febronianism and so forth. And also against political liberalism, which sought to dominate the church in various European countries. So Catholics rallied around the popes, specifically Blessed Pius IX and Leo XIII, in an effort to combat these things. Well, in the end, they succeeded to a degree in the sense that by, say, 1940 or 50, you simply could not conceive of a devout Catholic not being completely loyal to the Pope in every sense of the word, which was fine for what they were attempting to do. Unfortunately, as you say, the Ultramontanist structures were seized upon and are now being used for the opposite purpose. But the litmus test is simply this: when someone yaps at you for not favoring what the current Holy Father is doing, just ask them, and did you feel the same way about Benedict? So under Benedict, you attacked everyone who opposed the Tridentine Mass, right? If they say, well, no, I see. So basically, you're all for the Pope when he's what you want him to be, but when not, you dump him. I get it. Now you might ask, and you could, well, surely you're the same way. Well, that's true. The difference is that I favor almost all of the popes, as opposed to one or two. So in other words, I don't favor what Benedict XVI had to say about a raft of things because he said them. I favor what he said because he was repeating what a ton of his predecessors said. There's a difference there. It's the difference between my repeating received wisdom, especially in a milieu, in this case a religion, that operates off received wisdom and always has. Or if I start making up stuff on my own and demanding that you accept it as though it were centuries old received wisdom. Well, no, that's not on. That's not on at all. It doesn't work that way. The Catholic Church is not the mystical body of the Pope. And if the Pope flies in the face of his predecessors, then you've got to ignore him and wait, at least in that area, and pray and wait for saner times. Notice something too. Innovators like, say, Martin Luther always appeal to a future Pope, never to the past ones. Luther, who of course the current Holy Father very much admires, was always saying how, well, this Pope's wrong, but he awaited a future more enlightened Pope. Whereas the proper attitude is this Pope repeating the teachings of the Church or not? I mean, that's why when Pius XII and Pius IX were going to be defining the Immaculate Conception and the Assumption, they had to run all over here and there to make sure that they were simply defining what the Church had always taught. And they were very rigorous about that. One of the things you will not see in the current pontificate is any kind of intellectual rigor about anything. It's just fly by the seat of your pants or whatever shows up on Grindr. Hopefully not in the seat of your pants, however. Did you have to make that joke?
All right. Question from Jake.
I found it very offensive.
Well, don't be offended then.
Okay. Took care of that. All right, took care of that. I'm not offended now. It's great.
No, I mean that's one of my favorite.
Thanks a lot, boss. I feel a lot better now.
Well, that's actually inspired by Father Ripperger, because Father Ripperger, I forgot what video he was doing, but it was about I think on some level just spiritual guidance, and so much of spiritual guidance is just basically saying stop it, and he referred to a very hysterical Mad TV skit with Bob Newhart, where Bob Newhart's a psychiatrist. And his therapy basically is 2 words: stop it. It's like, well, and so he had this patient, this woman's, and she's going through all her problems and obsessions, and she's worried about being buried in a box, alive in a box, because her mom was this way and that way, and she'd start to go into why she feels that way. It's like, nope, we don't go there. We don't go there. Just stop it. Just stop it. and that's Father Ripperger's approach to the spiritual life. Just okay, forget all that. Just stop it.
Well, in the Newhart show, he did a lot of that. Although you've also reminded me of the old joke about the doctor and the lady being examined, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor says, "Does it hurt when you go like that?" And she says, "Yes, don't go like that."
Yeah, exactly.
Don't go like that. It won't hurt.
For those listening on the podcast, Charles did this really obscure, weird hand, thing. So, yeah, okay, don't do
Don't
that
go
with
like
your
that,
hand. Yeah.
and it won't hurt.
Okay. But yeah, I love Bob Newhart. It's
The
so funny.
button-down mind.
Yeah. All right. Question from Jake, who says, "Greetings from Soviet Kazakhstan. What are Charles's views on Canada's new bill C4 and the general assault on free speech in the West?"
Those are two somewhat related but different things. C4 is the bill forbidding conversion therapy for same-sex attracted people, which, frankly, is a monstrous intrusion of government into psychiatry. I think rather than worrying about whether or not someone is right and thinking he can have his gender preferences altered, they should be wondering why they themselves are such slime bags. But I don't know that that's actually a scientific term in terms of mental health. What's your problem? Well, doctor, I think I'm a slime bag. Is there any way that you could cure me of being such a total waste of space? No, I don't know, Your Excellency. As your high government official, I don't know if you can be cured of being an utter worthless piece of garbage. Perhaps there's some sort of conversion therapy. No, I think that the Canadian government should be looking into why they're such scum. That should be the question. If I were Pierre Elliott Trudeau or the worthless Premier of Quebec or any one of these other jackals they've got running around up there, the really appropriate question would not be, should I outlaw conversion therapy? It should be, just why am I so worthless? Is it because my mother was Margaret Trudeau or because my father was Pierre Trudeau? Or am I like a perfect storm of worthless? Well, is there any kind of therapy that could bring me out of being a totally worthless waste of space?
It's so weird because it seems contradictory and like impossible to enforce in, this age where we're talking about being gender fluid. In other words, where you can change, right? Where nothing's fixed. You can change all your preferences. Why can't conversion therapy aid a change in preference? I thought
it doesn't work that way.
Oh, wait.
It's like, why is it my body, my choice stops with vaccination?
Because that impacts me too, Charles. It impacts me. Your choices impact me. So you have to do what I say.
Well, what about the kids who won't be paying into your Social Security so you're eating dog food when you're 85? Because they weren't born and stuff.
What about them?
Their body, their choice.
I don't like thinking about that.
No, I'm sure not. That's the whole point. And I mean, the thing is, all of these crummy little slogans they come up with vanish as soon as it's something that matters to them. It's such hypocrisy.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely correct. I mean, if we're gender fluid, surely, if I want to have conversion therapy to become queer, I should be able to have it. But But if it makes you feel better, the state of California, I think, has also banned it, so it's okay.
I heard a very powerful sermon on Sunday. This is a huge tangent, but I just thought I'd share it because I thought it was a great point. I heard a great sermon where the priest, he got on to a pro-life rant, which was great. And because I think we're at like I think the number's like 50 million now.
50 million what? Dead
Abortions.
babies?
Yeah.
50 million
We're
dead
around there.
babies.
Yeah.
That's a lot of dead people.
So it is a lot. And so he was talking about that, where you have these people where they might say, well, why didn't God send us somebody who well, to fix this, to fix that, to cure cancer, to do these things. And with that many abortions, like, well, you know what, he could have. We just aborted him.
Yeah.
God had in mind somebody to do exactly that, but we said no.
Well, my father always said that the only way he could favor abortion is if it could be extended up to age 18. He said the problem with killing infants is you don't know what you're killing. Whereas if you're able to abort them between ages 15 and 18, you know what you're killing. What? What?
That's a brutal saying from your dad.
Oh, Dad had a lot of them. He really, I mean, I'm the only nice person in my family, but my dad, he really, really could reduce things, to the bare minimum. Like, whenever it came to shacking up, he was just, oh, I see. So she's not worth marrying. I get it. Well, no, we're in love. Oh, yeah, but you wouldn't marry her. So I guess you're waiting for something decent to come along. Well, no, she's great. Well, yeah, but you wouldn't marry her. Well, she doesn't want to get married. Ah, so she's waiting for somebody decent. I get it. Well, I hope she meets somebody. What?
That's brutal. I like it. All right, final question for today.
I can't take this. Should I go through the duties of the presidency again, just for comfort's sake?
Please, let's not.
Okay.
All right. Daniel with a really great question. He says, knowing Charles's love for all things fairy, I must admit that I've always had a particular soft spot for the stories of Peter Pan. For example, Peter and Wendy, Peter Pan in Kensington Gardens, even the movie Hook. I'm curious to know Charles's thoughts on the Peter Pan stories, any background info he knows of about the author, and other older legends of a similar nature. If he would like to then progress into a discussion about how the modern world has in many ways fully embraced a sort of Peter Pan complex, of just doing whatever they want and never wanting to grow up and take responsibility for anything. I'm sure he could make that quite an enjoyable tangent as well.
Oh, boy. Well, the author of Peter Pan, I can't think of his name. I can see his face. Not Milne, that was Winnie the Pooh. Oh, gee. This is annoying.
James Matthew Barrie?
That's right, James Barrie, who actually wrote a number of other interesting things, and was also a playwright. He was a Scot. And Peter Pan was based on a boy he knew. As with Wendy and the other darling children. That was the name of the family in the book, the Darlings. But in terms of what they were factually based on, in terms of folklore, it was very much a manufactured thing, very much a literary thing. But it incorporated in Neverland the Lost Boys, the Indians, the pirates. These were all standbys of kids' adventure books of that era. pirates and Indians and so on and so forth. But the idea of the boy who wouldn't grow up, or refused to grow up, that of course found a very, very willing ear later on. And yeah, I enjoyed the Peter Pan stories very much too, and the Peter Pan ride at Disneyland. I very much enjoyed that too.
Yeah.
It's a very beautiful ride actually. Artistically, it's very lovely. But in terms of my generation, well, my little joke is that we're the only generation I've ever heard of that grew old without ever growing up. And there's a certain amount of truth to that. The difference, of course, is that Peter Pan didn't want to grow up, but he had a brave heart. He fought the Indians. He fought Captain Hook.
Yeah.
He was willing to do or die for Wendy and the other lost boys. So Peter Pan retained all the best parts of childhood, of the bravery, the audacity, even in a sense, the idealism. Our current Peter Pans, especially those in charge in church and state, have all the worst elements of childhood and none of the good ones. They're stuck forever at age 13. Middle schoolers are very difficult. It's very sad, really. And the obsession with staying young, with youth. If I had a dime for every one of my peers who said to me, "Oh, it's terrible. My son, my daughter's getting married. I'm too young to be a grandparent."
Really?
No. Whereas, I have to be honest with you, when my nephew first came home and told me that his wife was pregnant, I was the happiest kid on the block. I was going to be a great uncle. And I thought of my great uncles who were all in World War One. So, it was neat. In the immortal words of John Denver in Poems, Prayers, and Promises, it really turns me on to think of growing old. Because, the cycle turns. When my nephew was married, was at his wedding, my brother and I were reflecting on how we were now in the position of the old relatives that we had when we were children, our great aunts and uncles, our grandparents. And it's a wonderful part of life. Ideally, you embrace every stage of life you're in to the best of your ability. When you're a kid, for heaven's sake, be a kid. Enjoy it. That's why I hate so much of the sex ed and all that, because it's an attack on the latency, period. When you're little to younger, that's when you're working out who you are before the stresses and strains of puberty. Before that even plays a part, you should be a good piece of the way on to knowing who you are. I mean, obviously, it's an ongoing process, but that's why that period is so important. That's why things like Boy Scouting and Girl Scouting are so important, to help kids within their own area realize themselves. Same with altar boying. That's why it was during that period for so many priests that the first touch of a vocation began to rear its head, because that's the period when you really discover who you are as an individual. Then puberty comes, and you find out who that boy or girl is, already knowing that they're Bob Jones or Sally Smith. Now they become men or women. And that period has particular joys and particular annoyances that are proper to it, that should be embraced. Then you reach a certain age, or on the marriage market, same thing. And the decision is made whether you're going to be married or not, or you're going to be going to religious life or vocation or whatever is going to happen to you. And you should enjoy that. And middle age will come where you're living with the choices you made when you were younger. And you're doing whatever you did based on those choices. And you should enjoy that. And then when middle age ends and you're old and you see death ahead of you, well, then you use everything you've picked up, everything you've acquired, every talent, every bit of knowledge, and you use it, A, to help spread your own way to heaven, B, to make things a bit better in the world than you've left them, than you picked them, than you received them, and C, to leave something for the younger people behind you to help them in their stage. And then you shuffle off this mortal coil and go on to the next adventure. That's the way it's supposed to be. But we have produced people who, especially of my age and a bit older, who never enjoyed anything they were doing, never embraced what they were doing, except for a small portion of their lives, which they rushed like mad to get to, and having gotten there, have attempted to stay at in all the decades since. And that by itself would be grotesque. Put such a person in a position of power, and he shares his mania with everybody.
Wow.
Tangential enough for you?
That was good, Charles. All right, we are out of time for this episode. In addition to all the things that Charles said on the calendar, in addition to that, it's actually my birthday. So
yes.
I've got places to go, people to meet, high-class social obligations. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. You're going down to Kelsey's to tip a few back with the boys. I know. But that being the case, this is for you, Chief. You ready?
Ready.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, caro Vincenzo. Happy birthday to you.
Hey, thank you, Charles.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And a very, very happy 25th.
Yes, 25th. 25
yeah, sure.
quarter century.
Yeah, sure. You bet. This has been a paid message. No, seriously, ladies and gentlemen, do your best to hold on to this last bit of Christmas. Be sure. Oh, wait a minute! Before we dissolve into our pieces, we can't go without the Ceremony upon Candlemas Eve by Robert Herrick. There are actually two of them, one real short, one a little longer. Here's The Ceremony upon Candlemas Eve by Robert Herrick. Remember, they're taking down the decorations. Down with the rosemary and so, down with the bays and mistletoe, down with the holly, ivy, all, wherewith ye dress the Christmas all, that so the superstitious find no one least branch left there behind. For look, how many leaves there be neglected there, maids, trust to me, so many goblins shall you see. But a little more sophisticated, that was the ceremony upon Candlemas. These are the ceremonies for Candlemas Eve. Down with the rosemary and bays, down with the mistletoe. Instead of holly, now upraise the greener box for show. The holly hitherto did sway, let box now domineer, until the dancing Easter day or Easter's Eve appear. Then youthful box, which now hath grace your houses to renew, grown old, surrender must his place unto the crisped yew. When yew is out, then birch comes in, and many flowers beside, both of a fresh and fragrant kin, to honor Whitsuntide, that's Pentecost, Green rushes then and sweetest bents with cooler oaken bows. Things succeed as more things grow old. The whole year goes round again and again and again, ladies and gentlemen. And I can only tell you that I am looking forward already to when November means the approach of Advent and the wondrous kingdom of Christmas extends across the globe once more. But till then, Candlemas and Mardi Gras.
All right. And remember, if it's Monday...
Don't help me. I do this best without a nap. It's off the menu.
And the soul you save...
Upon complete consideration of all of the possible alternatives and the inferences that may be drawn, might well be your own.
See you next time.
Ciao, ciao, guys.